Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Amazon. This was a stock analysis request from one of the followers, and I wanted to let you know that anyone can make these requests and I'll most likely cover them, especially if there is an actionable trade setup to follow. And in the case of this chart, we actually have a very bullish structure going on. We have an initial wave 1 up, we have a wave 2 down, and then we are tracking a very large and significant wave 3 to the upside that is expected to actually continue for a very serious amount of time from now on. Yeah, I would expect that we have already passed the middle of this larger uptrend, but I would not be surprised that we actually have yet to see the strongest movement just yet still appear. Now, within this initial push to the upside, and this larger wave 3 is of course formed of a larger 5-wave move structure, an impulse in this area. And there are actually a number of ways in which we could track the initial wave 1 to the upside. So I could consider this to be just a singular wave 1, a wave 2, and then another one to set up here, and then we would be in a wave 3 that is expected still to continue. But realistically, I could also track here a series of 1, 2 setups, and even just a singular wave 1 to the upside that could have formed a top only here. Yeah, this could be a singular wave 1 in a 1, 2, 3, 4th, 5th. Not necessarily the prettiest interpretation, but it is certainly possible. But in the end as well, I also wouldn't pay too much attention to the exact structure in this area. As we push higher, we may be able to build such a movement, we may build such a pattern that even all three of these interpretations could actually be valid at the same time, while also having completed a larger movement within this wave 3. And in fact, what is most interesting to us is this uptrend in this area specifically, and as we extend even higher within it, I am tracking actually still quite an active internal wave 3 in this movement, where we have here a wave 1 up, a wave 2 down, and then in an internal wave 3, a core wave 3, I'm tracking here a 1, 2, 3, 4th, and then this could be a 5th wave complete. But realistically, we need to be prepared for the idea of continuation within this wave 5 still to even new. Yeah, and even though it is possible for us, as we have enough waves, it is possible for us to consider this overall larger wave 3 already complete with a top in place, and we could be looking for a large correction within a wave 4. Right now, there is really nothing bearish going on. There is no signal that this structure should already form a very significant top where we would start looking here at a correction in a wave 4 into the area of support between the $116 level all the way down to the $47 level. And sure, again, it is possible. There is no need for additional highs, as this count can be considered full, but we are consolidating right now at a very high level. It is very easily achievable to this chart, to this structure, that it gets further extensions higher, and not even within a singular count. And while we will continue to allow this interpretation to remain active in the background, yeah, it is a possible top, internally I would actually have a couple of scenarios that would allow further extensions higher. So in a smaller time frame, I could actually consider this to be just the initial wave 1 of a much larger wave 5 to the upside. And in this interpretation, we would still expect a decent reaction and a decent retracement. It would really only be into the area of support between the $166 all the way down to the $104 level at a 78.6% retracement, levels from which it can actually be expected to extend in an even stronger wave than this initial movement to the upside within the wave 1. And we will continue to track this idea here in the blue interpretation. This is actually one of the more bullish scenarios that allows serious extensions within this wave 5 in white, extending also this larger wave 3 in white. Now, with that said, I also at this point have no real evidence that this initial movement to the upside, even in a wave 1, even in a wave 5, is complete. We do have enough waves to consider it complete. This could be a 1, 2, a 3rd, 4th, and a 5th. It would work out very well within the idea of a diagonal structure. But at the same time, I could also track internally in this area an extension within an ABC movement, where this would be a 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this could have been the entire wave 3. Instead of having a wave 3 top here, we can have it here. Then this would be a wave 4. But we would be tracking a diagonal pattern, in which case we wouldn't expect this 5-wave movement to be the entire wave 5. We would expect here to build an ABC structure, and that remains a valid interpretation to us as long as we hold here the $178.7 level at the 78.6% retracement. So far, we may have even formed a bottom within this wave B, as we have a 3-wave correction, which is all that is needed for such a structure for a wave B, and we have even a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside internally in this area that could be considered a 1-2 setup, part of the larger wave C. Now, this is already a good initial signal for the structure to have a bottom in place, but yes, we would need still further evidence, and honestly, even this wave A could also still see further extensions, yeah? Even this wave A, as it is built by a diagonal structure itself, could see something like an ABC movement to still play out within this wave 5. Yeah, I don't really have anything opposing the idea that this structure could extend higher within the wave A alone, so in the end, we have very many bullish scenarios going on in this chart. There are very many interpretations that allow further extensions, and we need to take it from within out, meaning that we should focus more internally on the internal structures and be patient, be aware that for this chart we need to be more flexible and allow more of a hedge perspective in the territory of these structures. And it should be obvious, because as we go lower and lower in time frame, we still find structures, more and more structures that actually allow further extensions higher. We went here for the larger wave 1 in the blue interpretation to have a wave 2 correction. Sure, it is a valid interpretation, but then if we move to a smaller time frame, we have a wave A that could see a wave B correction and then a C wave to still take us higher. And if we move on the even smaller time frame, well, sure, this wave A could have topped here, but it doesn't need to. We could still see continuation higher within this structure. We could still see this wave A extend itself, meaning we need to go on an even smaller scale, and we need to be tracking the smaller time frame. And even though we don't necessarily look for trade setups in this area on a smaller time frame, we can have here at least a potential internal ABC movement that could allow us to track continuation in an uptrend. Even in a larger wave B that would not be over, it is rather likely than not that we should see another extension higher here before heading into a deeper correction. Now, we can track here some relevant areas of resistance. Right now, as long as we don't form an additional high, we could technically still form even a larger 1, 2, 3, 4th and the 5th, as we did manage to get held back by the 61.8% retracement. So what I would recommend in the end, actually let me add here some data. So we will be tracking here the orange resistance area for a larger ABC movement, where as long as we don't break the 78.6% retracement, we can still look for continuation here in a larger wave B in yellow. And then as long as we hold here an internal area of support, the 78.6% retracement, we can track this in green. Now these internal structures will get removed. I don't really consider these particularly interesting or relevant scenarios on a larger scale, but we have here an internal potential AB or 1-2 setup down to the $220 level. But this is about it from the smaller time frame. I probably still prefer higher, but I don't necessarily look for entries or positions in this area. And what I would generally recommend on this chart is to be patient and look for a larger, more significant correction. From a large time frame perspective, we could have a quite significant top, but once we have a more significant correction, at least let's say in the wave B, for example, we get into the 61.8% retracement or the 78.6% retracement. This is what, at least the minimum, what we want to see on this time frame. And we get an initial 5-wave move to the upside. This could be an interesting 1-2 setup to look for. This is not necessarily a high probability pattern to get, yeah, because even if we would get here into a larger wave B correction, we could build a more direct 5-wave move to the upside in a wave C and complete the overall uptrend. Yeah, complete the larger wave 1 in blue or the larger wave 5 in white. But what is rather more likely to happen, and what is probably a more likely scenario to come out of all these structures, is after the larger correction in 3 waves in the wave 2 in blue, if we find an internal initial 5-wave move to the upside, now that is what will be the most interesting structure. if we get here an internal 1-2 setup. And until we get such a reliable pattern, yeah, other scenarios that I didn't mention right now could still play out, but until we get a larger, more reliable pattern, it is probably best to be patient and maybe even focus on other charts, because once we do get this structure, it will be interesting. We will be able to track a very interesting setup, but until such is the case, we are consolidating still at a very high level. We could form just another swing high and then have a very serious correction. So yeah, right now it is best to focus our efforts on other stocks, and when we get our larger correction, we will be tracking an internal initial 5-wave move to the upside, and that will be our key point when we can track an internal 3-wave correction for a very, very interesting trade setup. Yeah, sure, this larger area of support can be used as well, but until we get the internal 5-wave move to the upside, there will be no signal that this will not be just an initial movement, part of a larger correction within the wave 4 in white. We need to be patient on this chart and basically play it smart. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.